Good evening, friends. Let's start with this webinar. I'm so excited to actually conduct this, and I'm so thankful to all my panelist members who agreed to come and join me in this discussion. And I would like to thank Riya Group to invite me as a moderator. $2 billion travel company started off 4 decades back on the spirit of entrepreneurship and pure customer service. Absolutely brilliant. And every time I speak to Mr. Thampi, he gives me so much of energy. And during this pandemic, I was talking to him. He never ever gave me this impression that something was going wrong with the industry. He always said that let's do this, let's do that, and that's the spirit. And that's the spirit that has always kept our industry going. And I'm so glad that today we have Sanjay. Doesn't require any introduction. So many years of experience in airline business. Worked with Sahara, SpiceJet. Founding a group member of Indigo. One of the finest airline today. Worked with AirAsia. Come back to Indigo and driving strategy today. Satyaki. Global airport. Leadership experience. Worked. I worked I had a chance to work with Satyaki very closely, when we were doing master planning in Bangalore airport. Extremely experienced and, from a consulting background and now driving strategy for Bangalore airport. Parul, who has so much of rich experience in the hotel business, general manager of a hotel. I always consider that as a CEO role. You need to handle the entire organization as a CEO, and now today focusing on as a senior area director in sales and distribution, which is probably going to be fundamental area that hotel has to see in terms of bouncing back in post-COVID challenging times. Vikash comes from extremely solid background when it comes to finance. Worked with HP, now right now with Exaware, Wipro. And I was talking to Vikash, and I was so excited to see his passion for travel, and because he realizes the importance that business travel, the word itself shows that it's directly linked to the top line growth of the company. And he was telling me that while online has helped us to go through this phase of lockdown, but he's certain that we just cannot replace physical travel with online. And Vikash was sharing some really great in-depth work that they are doing, how Exaware can come back and bounce back to take travel. Prashant, no one needs this introduction because most of the people here, we have more than 600 people registered for this webinar. And, I was just told that 150 people have already logged in. And I think most of them, Prashant knows. Prashant was leading HR in Thomas Cook. Now he's an angel investor, strategist thinker in the HR side, and, also driving business growth through HR. You'll find very few people who actually drive a business commercial growth, using from an HR perspective. Absolutely brilliant. I was so happy to be part of this group. And one thing that I want to do is, every webinar that we have seen in the business, it was always focused on the supply side. And media is talking about airlines and airports and what airlines is doing in terms of safety and airports doing. I think we have spoken about it enough. I think Indigo has demonstrated through effective communication, saying that what they are doing. BIL is doing some outstanding communication, and marketing team is just flooding social handle with various communication in terms of how they are sanitizing and how they are using latest cutting edge technology to ensure that people's safety, touchless travel, and so on and so forth. But the challenging part is, what about the demand side? We want the demand side to pick up, and that's the most critical part that industry is facing with. So that's why I was very keen that we get a strong a finance cost center, because it's all, every business is going through a tough time, and travel, advertising, marketing, while it's a critical integral component of business growth, but it's directly linked to cost, and it's a cost center. So very few people realize that. So I wanted to start with Vikas and Prashant, and Vikas, why don't you tell us that what's Exaware? Because I think probably for Exaware, second largest investment after salaries and people are travel. Is travel, and travel is integral component of your business development. So what are you doing to bounce back and come back into the travel? Once things are going to start regularizing.
Sure, Grace. Thanks for that introduction, and hello everyone. It's a pleasure to be speaking to all of you. Hope all of you are safe and staying that way during these times. As Girish mentioned, for me as a company and for us as a company in Hexaware and for me as a CFO, getting the business travel back is extremely important. As Girish mentioned, for us as an industry, an IT industry in particular, the single largest component of our spend after the salary is travel. And it's an extremely important component because we have our engineers traveling across the world for project deliveries, sales team going across and meeting customers. And if travel is not back, then maybe we would be able to maintain what we have from a current demand perspective, but we are not going to be able to sell more. And that basically means an end, right? From a future perspective. So we need to get it back. The second aspect is, while all these online other aspects are good from a uh, uh, temporary perspective, and the reason I use the word temporary because it's not a permanent solution. Human beings are social animals. We need to actually have people come out and meet and take to the skies and go and meet other people, get to interact and get the feel of what's happening on the ground, because that's where the deals happen. That's where how the relationships are built. It's not built over a video conferencing, right? So getting people back is extremely important. Now, when we think about it in our company, I mean, if I have to summarize everything in one word, the single word what it summarizes is, how do we ensure that our employees feel safe? And that's where it all comes down to. There are certain things what we are doing as a company, but I guess a larger part which has to be played with the other industry players. And when I think about the industry players, I'm talking about the airports, the travel industry, the airlines, the hotel industry, so on and so forth. And I lay out few aspects, which I think more from what we are doing from a company perspective is sitting where I am is going to be my ask from an industry perspective as to, hey, how can you come together in terms of ensuring that everyone feels safe to take to skies again? The first and foremost is in terms of how do we ensure that the travelers feel that the physical distancing norms is going to be maintained in the next flight? Now, currently the experience is very between individuals on what's promised versus what's delivered. Some have good experiences while the others not so good. Now, till the time there is a consistent level of experience, there is always a doubt or a skepticism associated with it that should we be traveling back again. Now, I just heard Girish when you said that BIL has done an excellent job in terms of maintaining sanitization at the airports, the actions they are taking. And similarly, Indigo has done a great job in terms of doing the same from the airlines perspective. Unless and until the same thing is percolated down to multiple players and even all the airports, people are not going to feel safe, because one airport doing the same, one airlines doing the same does not provide the level of confidence which is required from a consumer perspective in terms of taking back to the skies. And surprising, actually not surprisingly, there have been multiple surveys which have been done, and I was reading one of the surveys done by a consulting firm, which indicated that corporates and consumers, even individual consumers, are willing to pay more for maintaining the physical distancing. So it's no more a question of commercials, right? Because people are willing to pay more for it. It's a necessity now. So how can the industry provide confidence on to ensure that what's delivered is what's promised, and that's that the physical distancing norms should be maintained? Because vaccine is no way in sight right now. I mean, there are different predictions in terms of when it is going to be available, but unless it is available on a large scale or a mass scale, people are scared in terms of taking to skies again. So that's point one. Physical distancing norms, how do you maintain?
So here, Vikash, I would like to just come in. You have touched a very interesting point. So while we are doing many things, but how will you effectively disseminate this and communicate this? And that leads me to the point that I've been talking to Sanjay and Satyaki, and also in my some LinkedIn posts, saying that how can the industry come together and do an effective communication? While individually as independent brands, they've been doing some great job, but how can we make this communication effective? Because communication builds perception, perception is reality, and that's how safety or whatever we are talking about can be reinforced. So Sanjay, do you want to just comment on how can we actually communicate effectively and create perceptions so that people feel safer or people feel comfortable to start traveling again for business?
Thank you, Girish, and thank you, Vikas, for making a very important point. I think as an airline, we have done a lot more than what was expected from us, and also Satyaki is on the call. And also, if you look at the entire ecosystem of the aviation, primarily, the kind of work which has been done in the entire aviation sector is absolutely unprecedented. I mean, we could have never thought that within 3 months of resumption of our operations, all the airlines or the airports will get to almost 50-60% of the capacity utilization, and also about 60 to 75% load. That itself brings the element of trust and confidence. On the first day or the first week or first 2 weeks of the operation, there were less than 20,000 passengers traveling across the country. And now, if you look at the Minister of Civil Aviation tweet every day, he tweets, and yesterday's number was as high as 125,000 passengers on a daily basis, which only shows to reflect one point, that obviously customer confidence is still far away from what it was at the pre-COVID level, but it is certainly improving as more and more customers are taking through air. And again, I don't want to kind of talk about what the airlines have done, what the airports have done, but collectively as an industry, I think a lot of things have been done. New operating procedures, which touchless, contactless travel on the part of the airline. I'll give you example on the airline side. I mean, before the COVID, if you were to talk to any customer, they would, there'll be less than 30 to 35%, 40% people who will be doing the web check-in. But now post-COVID, I think we are seeing numbers as high as the 95% of people are doing the web check-in. So they don't want to go to the check-in counter. They just want to go to the proceed for the boarding. So these are the new normals which are coming in. And obviously, customer trust and the confidence will also evolve over a period of time as more and more people take travel. They see the things on their own, they realize, and then more and more people will kind of take to the travel. I think I totally agree with Vikas's point that this has to be consistent across the airports. This has to be consistent across the airline, but there will be some differentiation between one versus another, which will kind of also define as to how the business has to grow. And we have seen very great results. It required a lot of investment, a lot of process improvement, a lot of issues on the productivity side, especially on the airline side. There are a lot of issues which we have to kind of compromise as far as the productivity is concerned. But what is more important these days is the customer safety, customer trust, and hygiene and safe environment to travel. And I think that is what we are focused on. But in terms of communication, could there be opportunity to do combined, as an industry? Of course, there is an opportunity like that.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. Satyaki, I know that BIL has embraced a lot of cutting edge technology, and, stakeholder collaboration is the focus area. Do you want to just, give Vikash in the corporate enterprise world, the confidence in terms of, and also, from an airport as a community, what are the kind of steps that we are taking so that, enterprise world, it starts getting this communication effectively in terms of how to make travel safer? Satyaki, you're on mute. You'll have to just unmute yourself.
Sorry, yeah. Thank you, Girish, and thank you, everyone. And I apologize for that call. But, I think both Vikas and Sanjay touched on very interesting points. Challenge today is the fact that there is a perception that travel or going outside is unsafe. And I think over the course of the last 3-4 months, most of the effort within the industry has been focused on rebuilding that confidence. And if you look at whether it's the airline, whether it's the airport, whether it's other member of the supply chain or other sort of stakeholders, everybody has generally been focused on rebuilding passenger confidence or customer confidence in terms of saying it's okay, it's safe to travel. And as far as Sanjay and I are concerned, particularly with respect to aviation, I think we are trying to also highlight the fact that if you're going to travel, short of going in your own car or your own vehicle, personal vehicle, aviation is by far the safest mode of transport. And I think that's underscored by the fact that, that's been proven across various geographies and various studies. From our perspective, I think one thing that I will say is that about 3 years ago, we embarked on a fairly comprehensive digital transformation journey, as Girish, you know. And we've spent a lot of time looking at various things that we believe will be focused on 3 things: enhancing customer experience, improving operational efficiency, and giving us in the future the ability to generate ancillary revenue. And our digital transformation journey that we embarked on about 3 years ago, that was sort of focused on this, has meant that we've been able to come back or been able to react to COVID much faster than a lot of other people. And I think it's because we sort of built the platforms, we looked at the processes, and we also looked at the cultural aspect of making that change within the organization in terms of pushing our staff to sort of think differently, seeing what we could do within the airport, within the wider sort of aviation stakeholder environment, etc., etc. And therefore, once we sort of thought about what we had to do when we were going through that first phase of the lockdown, I think what has happened is that we realized that with all of the investment that we've done in the last 3 years in terms of thinking through some of these challenges and reacting to many of these issues with respect to platform development and cultural transformation and process efficiency, we were able to come back and sort of put into place various measures that I think we could do very quickly because we'd already taken some of the initial steps in that journey. So whether it was contactless travel and biometric boarding, whether it was sort of looking at better sanitation, hygiene, whether it was sort of thinking about how we could do better queue management or operational efficiency, all of those things were driven by many of the technological investments we'd already made. And so if you come to Bangalore Airport today, you can go entirely end-to-end sort of biometric if you wanted to. You could also entirely go contactless should you want to. And I think those things have really made sure that many of our passengers and customers have felt incredibly safe. And I will say that one of the things that's been most reassuring and sort of most heartening from our perspective is how many of our customers have come back and told us that they felt safer at Bangalore Airport than very many other points in their journey, even in some of the international airports that they've been through. So whether it was sort of say Heathrow or one of the American airports or any of the other European airports. So it's nice for us to know that we've taken decisions a few years ago that are paying off spectacularly now. And I think one point that I will like to make to just sort of tie back into Vikash's original statement and Sanjay's point earlier is that we need to be ensuring some degree of consistency with respect to processes and protocols. Today, the biggest challenge as far as passengers are concerned, right, is the fact that they don't really know what's going to happen. Let's say if they go to Bengaluru versus say Mumbai or to Delhi or let's say London or Dallas or whatever it is. And unless you can get some degree of consistency to know that, I have to do these 4 or 5 things regardless of which airport I need to go to. So whether it's testing, whether it's quarantining, whether it's processing, etc. If you can achieve some degree of consistency, right, I think you solve half the problem. Today, half of us don't really know what processes might exist or what quarantine protocols might exist if you go to some other place. And if you can solve that issue, I think business travel will come back in a big way, because I think at the end of the day, despite the fact that everybody's been talking about the fact that work has fundamentally changed, we'll all work from home, we will not travel and things like that. I think all of us in our hearts know that we like traveling, right? We want to go out and meet our customers. We want to go out and sort of meet our suppliers. We want to go out and meet clients and vice versa. And I think the thing that's holding us back is the fact that I don't really know. So if I go today to the US and come back, I don't know whether it's going to be 2 weeks quarantine there. Is it going to be 2 weeks quarantine here? Can I take 4 weeks off? What's the process going to be there? So I think all of these things are really hurting us. And I think if the industry can come together and the airports, the airlines, the travel firms, the hotels, etc., can all work together to achieve some degree of consistency with respect to processes and protocols, I think you will actually do a lot more for rebuilding consumer confidence than almost anything else when it comes to any other effort.
Absolutely. I think uncertainty of regulations and uncertainty of once I land into a particular airport, what is going to happen to me? What is the surprise waiting? I think that's probably the factor which may be stopping people from travel. I think Parul, hotel, probably would be really challenging business now to come back. But one good thing is that most of our states have removed quarantine, and things are looking back. And I know that you are traveling today for business, and you yourself conducting some meetings and trying to be on the road and see how you can get some business back. So do you want to just add on to Sanjay and Satyaki and deliberate on the point that Vikash made and make the enterprise world, give them a communication which is effective?
Yeah, thank you so much, Girish. Exactly what Vikash just brought out, the fact that I think we need to create that confidence in the minds of the consumer that I think there's time now that they can travel. I just want to highlight a point and bring us to 9/11 that happened a couple of years ago, and there was that fear in everybody's mind of how was travel going to shape up. but I think everybody was very quick to react, and everybody changed processes, the way companies looked at loss prevention, and they were very quick to adapt. And I think this is what's happened in today's time as well during the pandemic. I think we had time to really understand what was happening. If I may, it was around March where I think it started hitting the rest of the world. I think everybody reacted very quickly. And I think, this is a confidence that I think we as service providers have spent a major portion of our time really to first educate ourselves, and then, ensuring that we do everything that is required to rebuild the customer confidence. That's absolutely key. And I think everybody's now got a system and a process in place. I think all of us, if you ask all the service industries or even, companies for that matter, I think everybody has gone touchless, and it's, how quickly it's happened is phenomenal. Today, in fact, we were just having lunch before joining this meeting, and if you see, everybody's gone contactless. You order your food across through your mobile now. Every company has taken steps to really ensure safety and security, and they knew that if they didn't change, they would perish. And the companies have really spent a lot of time over the last 2 to 3 months really to understand what were the needs and have changed their service sequence accordingly. If I look at the hotel's, standpoint, right from the pre-check-in to post-check-in and everything during the guest journey, we made sure that everything is contactless, maintaining hygiene standards. We are ensuring standards within our associates and with our guests. And we have constant, reminders, like Siddiqui said, at the airports, we have reminders. Similar with hotel industry as well. There are reminders all along the way of, what are the safe ways to travel. I think we really need to, apart from really setting up the standards, we then spend a major part of the last couple of months in really educating our customers as well on what has happened. And I think that's key for us to really build confidence with our customers to make everybody understand what has been done, because I do understand that there is this fear in everybody's mind, thanks to the buildup of the communication and free media that's happening. But what it's industries have changed, have changed their service sequence, and we are ready to travel. As Girish mentioned, yesterday it came up and it was very last minute. We said, let's pick up, let's just drive to Chennai and see what's happening. And I think it's very important. It's important for us to touch base with our customers, with our consumers, and really understand what's happening. And as you said, business can't continue on video calls. It was great for a while, but now I think we are back. We absolutely should be confident that we can step out. We all know that, you have to be cautious with wearing a mask, with making sure that, you're sanitizing your hands and washing your hands regularly. Apart from that, really business has to go on. And every industry that we look at has re-engineered. That should build confidence in everybody's mind that now, the world has to move on. We need to think of the economy. We've deliberated enough about the COVID. But now, in order to move the economy, we really need to start moving and get our business back where they belong.
Absolutely, absolutely. And Parul, when you spoke about Twin Tower attack, I'm reading a very interesting book, in fact, recommended by another aviation enthusiast and a good friend called "Humankind: A Hopeful History," which says that humans actually during crisis, doesn't behave in a selfish way. They respond to it very beautifully. And media, or the way we have been communicated about that, which is probably not truth. It's a very interesting research. And that leads me to Sanjay and Satyaki, how much we have spent time and energy in airline and airport boardrooms saying that how can we increase web check-in, how can we increase kiosk check-in, and it has never moved more than 10-15%. And today here is Sanjay saying that almost 85-90% is web check-in. So I sometimes really don't understand this consumer psyche, right? So I want to bring Prashant here, saying that you being an HR expert, and I'm sure you can throw some light on how consumers actually react, and what is the employees how are the employees reacting? While we heard Vikash from an enterprise point of view saying that, what is at a management CFO, how are they trying to bounce back? But what is employees saying? What is HR getting a feel in terms of, employees responding to it from a psychology point of view? You're on mute, Prashant. You're on mute.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thanks, Girish, for getting me in. Very interesting discussion taking place. I may disagree with some of them as we talk. I've been talking to some people. I've talked to the HR heads of some companies, and I've also talked to the employees. I would rather put it as individuals, Girish, not employees. I talk to entrepreneurs as well.
Absolutely. I agree. Yeah.
And the fact is, we've witnessed in the last 6 months what probably the kind of changes we not witnessed in the last 6 years. Okay? And we are living in what people call new normal. I don't like that term. I call it random normal, because we don't know what's coming tomorrow. As I'm talking, I'm getting pictures of wildfires in California. I mean, what's going on in the world, really? Every day there's some event happening. So it's a random normal. And after collating some of these responses, I break it down into 4 big buckets. Okay. One bucket is of irritants in travel. Okay. And that's directly within the circle of control for a lot of people sitting here, and a lot of people that we can influence. And these irritants are like inconsistent experience across airlines and airports, which point has been made already. Second, this problem of refunds, not from employee, but from from entrepreneurs. Once they book the ticket, they don't know if they have to cancel it, what's happening to the refund issue. Okay? And these are very small problems, but these are the problems that I got. The third is complete, if a flight is on time, okay, everything goes on very smooth. There is no issue at all. But the moment there is something, the flight is not taken on time, or the flight is delayed, there is complete chaos in the airport, between the airline and the airport and the staff. Okay, you don't know if your ticket can be extendable and so on and so forth, different experience, different airlines, different things. So these are irritants, what I call, okay, and definitely this can be sorted out. The second one is about ambiguity. Okay? Ambiguity about what do you do when you land in Kolkata? Okay, Calcutta, I'm told there are certain days that you can't land in Calcutta. And just an example, but in other places also, are the taxis available? Are the hotels available? Are the restaurants open? There's a lot of ambiguity about the quarantine rules. Okay, one friend of mine who's working as a senior HR person in engineering conglomerate in Chennai, he stays in Mumbai. And the poor guy used to travel, have to spend 14 days in Bombay, 14 days in Chennai quarantine. So he's a guy who travels twice a month or thrice a month to his family in Bombay. Now he says that he will travel maybe once in 6 months. Okay. So ambiguity about what happens is the other predominant driver. The third is fear, which is obviously the fear of the disease getting contracted to self or to the family. And in HR, we call this syndrome, which is called reptilian syndrome, which is basically survival. And events like a pandemic can drive reptilian behavior, which is that we try to survive first. Everything else comes secondary. Okay. And I agree to Parul when she says that some of it is driven by the media and some of it is driven by what we are hearing and seeing. But there is a fear because of which people don't like to travel. And there is an interesting contrast between employees and entrepreneurs that I witnessed here. While entrepreneurs are more open to traveling when there is a need. Okay. And when I spoke to some of the employees, they were talking about the COVID situation in the place they are traveling, which is very valid actually. I would be very careful about traveling to a place where the COVID infection rate is high. So this is the third bucket, that's a fear. And I look at the pharma sector, I work in the pharma sector, and I know that vaccine is a question of not if, it's a question of when. It's a question of when it will come. It will definitely come, okay? So I'm sure some of this fear, some of this, everything will go up once the vaccine comes. But there is another one, another big driver, that's a fourth one. Because in 6 months, organizations have tasted, organizations and individuals have tasted the power of automation and technology. It's affected the way we work, it's affected the way we talk and do everything. That's some of that behavior. The reptilian behavior will go off once the vaccine comes. But some of the behavior driven by technology, driven by ease of doing things without going to workplace, the flexibility in policies, the work from home policies that have come, that is going to stay. And that will have an impact on the travel. Okay, how much that impact will be? It's up to, that's something I can't figure out now. But that's going to have an impact in travel. So travel companies, for example, so far, travel companies address the need of how to travel. Okay, but going forward, travel companies would need to address both how to travel and why to travel. Okay, and so that's my submission. I think I would say that there are 4 C's that travel companies and everyone here would need to address. That is consistency, that is compliance, that is confidence, and the 4th one is convenience. These are 4 C's that travel companies would need to address to ensure more and more people take time out and travel. Thank you.
Excellent. Somebody was telling me, which is a very interesting thing, like we see, when the April, May, June comes in, Sanjay, we see full page ads from Thomas Cook promoting leisure travel. So someone was telling me you may have to start advertising business travel and, create some packages for leisure travel and business travel. So which was very interesting while it didn't make sense to me, but, some lay person, not from the industry was telling, and I said, so after listening to, Sanjay, Satyaki, airlines, airports, corporate, hotel, I think we should just engage our audiences. We have more than 300 people listening to us, so what do they feel? Let's run the first poll. My backend team could just run this poll question saying that, how do they feel after listening to this? Do they feel confident? What is the range of confidence level about, going back on business travel? So my team could just put this poll question and see what's the kind of response that we are getting. So in view of enhanced sanitization, hygiene measures implemented by airports, airlines, hotels, and car rentals, what would be your confidence level to undertake business travel? So we could just see, have you opened up for voting?
Yes.
Okay, excellent. Okay, in 1 minute, if you could see the, what's the kind of response that we are getting, and we can stop the poll and get back.
I hope everybody's voted. We're going to close the polls now. Thank you.
So highly confident is 15%, confident is 46%, will wait and watch 38%, undecided. Interesting numbers, Satyaki and, Parul, what do we say? I think encouraging, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think.
Well, 60% are between confident and over, so we'll take that. That's a good start.
That's a very good start.
Honestly.
Absolutely.
We need folks to travel, and I'll be honest. It's not like I wasn't skeptical before I embarked on the journey today. It was after 7 months. I usually am on a plane every weekday, or we used to be before the pre-COVID dates. I was extremely nervous yesterday, and I know I didn't take a plane, but obviously that nagging feeling was there. But once you're on the road, you're fine, and it just brings about a new whole dimension to your travel, to your meeting, and to understanding what's happening around you. So I think just building that confidence, it's a so slow process, and we need to continue at it. Travel should come back. It is. We at least at our hotels are seeing, and I know at the airlines, we're seeing the levels of travel and the statistics. They are encouraging. I think people are slowly venturing out, and business should open up slowly but surely.
Absolutely. I think as a social, social fabric, and, it's absolutely critical. In fact, but Parul, very interesting point, that, when you said that, you've been skeptical, and, but you moved in today, and, that brings me to a very interesting point, because, I think this is all, if you just look at this whole, paranoia, I think one thing which we all have been, not very, in fact, I remember in my case, I never focus on that. And my colleague and my co-founder, Suraj, always tells me whenever I'm traveling, he's the man who actually, call me and tell me, Girish, did you do this? And I don't want to talk about it, but I know because, you know what I'm talking about. I think insurance, right? And is there anything that, enterprise customers are taking care of? Because that's the last thing that comes to my mind, but it's not good. I know that. And I remember every time I'm going for an overseas travel, especially, I think Suraj will call me, even for my personal Ironman travel, when I went to New Zealand before lockdown, Suraj called me previous night and said, Girish, did you take the insurance? And as always, I had not taken it. So what is in this situation, I think it becomes very critical. And because what is enterprise doing to are you trying to create any new packages and customize it into this post-COVID situation, or are we going to just continue with what we had? Do you want to throw some light on that? To gain employee confidence in that area.
Sure. So there are two parts to it. One is in terms of what we are trying to do as a company. The other is what we need to do on a mass scale from an industry perspective, generally to boost the demand. And that is going to be not only for the corporate consumers, but even for retail customers, right? What we have done from a company is obviously we have taken a lot of add-ons or top-up policies in terms of our existing policies from a company perspective to add all kinds of safety net associated with COVID. But I'll leave you with a thought in terms of what the industry can do, because when we have despite every top-up that we have taken, every time we tell to the employees, hey, if something happens to you, it is covered under the policy, they come back and say, well, it is from the same basket, which would have been otherwise available to me for something else. So why should I eat into that basket? Because then that means I have a lesser basket to dip into in case of any emergencies. So I'll come quickly in terms of what the industry can do. And this has been something which has been playing on my mind for quite some time. I've spoken to a few of the insurance brokers, the likes of the Marsh, Prudent, Howdens, and others who actually work with corporates in terms of a lot of the insurance policies. So while traveling, one is concerned that they can be infected, requiring quarantine or hospitalization. Now, we do not have insurance products, or at least I'm not aware of an insurance product that cater to these needs specifically, just associated with travel. And what I mean by that is, and I'll give an example, can we have the airlines work with insurance companies to come up with a policy or a product wherein the travel insurance cover is extended, say, for a period of 2 to 3 weeks post completion of travel, and in such cases, post 2 to 3 weeks after completion of travel, if there are any COVID-related expenses, then that's covered under that policy. So think about it, policy on the lines of Corona Kavach, but however, for a period of 2 to 3 weeks post completion of travel, so that everyone has this safety, a feeling of safety in their mind. Hey, the chances of me contacting the virus while I'm on travel is very limited. In case I contact anything during the travel, I would get symptoms of it in 2 to 3 weeks. And if I have anything associated with that, I have a safety net to fall back upon, which is in the form of an insurance policy. And that is all tied to your travel. So that's a product which the industry can look into. Similarly, on the international travels, one of the clarifications we have been trying to get, because in our company there are a lot of international travel requirements, what is covered under the current policies, because in international travels generally the policy starts from the time you start the trip till the time you can return back to the country of origin. More often than not, most of the travel insurance policies generally cover emergency hospitalization procedures. What they do not cover, if you look into the fine wordings between the lines, what is not covered is any isolation or quarantine if might be required, even as a precautionary measure of or mild symptoms into the other country when you have traveled. So again, we need to have this covered under travel insurance products so that you can provide that feeling of safety into the minds of the travelers when they think about travel in the new world. And this is one area where I think the industry players can do a lot in terms of working with the insurance agencies.
Absolutely. I think this is where, TMCs like Riya and in most of the TMCs and, consultants should work very closely with enterprise customers and customize these kind of products, which may not be, regular in the past, but, going forward, it may be very, very relevant. Yes, Prashant, you wanted to say something.
So I know of a particular corporate where this was given to employees, the COVID coverage. And the question raised by the employees was that, does it cover the family as well? Because I could be a silent area. So the corporate actually went back to the employees and said that we would take care of the employees' families as well if during travel the person actually contracts corona. So that's one practice that I got. So I thought I'll share that in this forum.
Okay, Sanjay, anything that you want to add on, on this area? Because I know that, even we have discussed in the past from an airline point of view on insurance, and, we are trying to innovate and, try to do many things there. Is there anything that you want to speak here on this subject?
Yeah, so Girish, just to kind of let everybody know, and Vikash in particular, that we have an insurance product. When you are buying your ticket through your TMC or your online booking channel, you could buy an insurance cover of 159 rupees, which is hardly any amount. And what it does is it provides you, not a great amount of, value in terms of the cover, but it does provide you 50,000 rupees worth of emergency assistance with a COVID coverage. So, for example, if within 15 days of your flight or your return ticket, you fall sick, against that insurance 159 rupees, you could kind of get COVID assistance or medical assistance worth of 50,000 rupees through that insurance cover. What it does is, it is just again one of those confidence building measures. So if I'm traveling to Bangalore, should I fall sick there, do I have some immediate relief, before I kind of talk to my family, talk to my company, do I have something immediate? So this is the kind of cover which, this has been really upgraded during this post-COVID scenario once we have relaunched the operation. So this is a good way of protecting your employees and as well as customers in terms of any unforeseen situation post-event travel. So we have this value only on the domestic side right now, but we are looking at the international side as well. So just kind of add to what Vikas was saying. So we do have a product like that.
Excellent. Parul, anything from hotel perspective? You've been working on this area on the insurance side.
So, Girish, no, the hotels haven't really, done anything with the insurance. I was actually thinking while you were deliberating on this point is, with COVID today, you don't know where you pick it up, right? I mean, there are so many instances where I've known of families who've absolutely quarantined themselves, not gone down during the lockdown, but somehow even picked it up. I think it's come from the delivery person or stuff like that. I can't understand, how do you guarantee that you picked it up only because you traveled? You can't pin that down and prove that you picked up that COVID during that time. I think what as hotels we do, we say we sanitize, we're doing everything to maintain hygiene at our hotels, and we can do what we can do at our hotels. But you really can't guarantee where an associate or a customer can pick up COVID. I don't think it's easy to pinpoint where anybody picked up COVID.
That brings me to a very interesting point that Vikash actually was telling me. Parul and Satiki both actually could give me some insights here. Vikash, when he was talking to me, a couple of days back, he said that, in Exaware, they have these leadership meetings and, and they want to travel. And, one of the things that he highlighted, which was very interesting, was that, once I finish a business meeting, not because state is regulated or someone is regulated, but I personally would not like to go back home. I would like to quarantine personally, proactively, from my family's health perspective, and I would like to work from a hotel, or quarantine myself for 7 days. So that brings a very interesting business model for hotels, airport hotels, and see how you can deliver a customized package for enterprise customers, right? Do you want to speak on that, Satyaki? Because you have an airport hotel, beautiful Taj there, and also Parul. Are you guys thinking about anything in that line?
Sure. I mean, I think it's always a interesting possibility, and having an airport hotel and allowing passengers the option of potentially quarantining for 7 days or self-isolating for 7 days, especially if they made an international trip, for instance, probably not a bad idea. And if people feel that, at least initially, right, they're nervous about business travel or any travel, having that option, I think, certainly helps. But I think more than anything else, I mean, I'm just, like I said earlier, I'm just convinced more and more that the only way you will truly reboot, these are all temporary measures, the only way you'll truly reboot business travel is to have a fairly aggressive testing protocol at, say, for instance, arrival airports or whatever it is, so that passengers can come in, they can get tested, and very quickly, so long as the test results are pretty accurate, whether you have COVID or not, or whether you're a carrier or not. And I think that's actually going to be the single biggest driver of rebooting business travel. So if we can do that, and the ability to either, I mean, ideally just after your flight, have a testing mechanism which is quick, cheap, accurate, and gives you enough confidence to know that, yeah, when you come off a flight, you'll know very quickly whether you have it or not, right? I think that will frankly go a long way in doing multiple things. One, encouraging on rebooting business travel, to preventing the need for any sort of quarantine whatsoever, because you can test at least at that point, and then moving forward. Because short of that, everything else, I mean, you're, again, by insisting on hotels and quarantine and things like that, you're already asking people to say, are you willing to potentially sign up for 7 days of paying a hotel or whatever else? And I think that doesn't necessarily drive people to buy tickets or to go on business trips and things like that, because you're adding costs. And I think today, if you look at most companies and corporates, the minute there's any discussion about adding cost, right, by definition, you're already reducing the potential for any sort of business travel, because none of us have major revenues coming in at this point, right? So the minute you add an element of cost into it, I think you're already sort of nixing the whole premise. So I think more than anything else, we got to figure out a testing mechanism which is robust, which is quick, which is cost efficient, and accurate, and that will really reboot business travel more than anything else.
Excellent, excellent. Parul, you have any thoughts on this? A quick one.
So, I agree with Siddiqui. I mean, absolutely. As it is with the pressure on bottom lines, I don't think we need to add another 14 days of quarantine to it. That said, I'm on a separate note. Yes, I mean, most of our hotels have 7-night, 14-night stays with all meals included. All again touchless. So those options are available. We have them on the shelf. But to his point, I don't recommend adding this as a mandate after every business travel. I don't think it's required even.
Yeah.
Girish, I just like to build on Satyaki's point, what he mentioned. Wouldn't it be great to have a testing pre-flight as well? Because then I know everybody on the flight is actually tested and are actually cleared to board the flight. Would that not build confidence? I'm just asking others as well.
So I think, Prashant, I think you've got a good point. So one of the things that, for instance, on the international flights, that as part of this whole air bubble or air bridge agreement that people have insisted on, and I think it's a good idea, especially for those coming from Europe or North America, for instance, is to have an RT-PCR negative test, right, taken within 96 hours of your flight. And I think that's a great starting point, simply because you know that everybody else on that flight, I mean, in theory, you should be traveling with people who are safe, who've all got RT-PCR negative results. And by doing that, what the government of India has also done, and I think it's a really good starting point, is that they've said that if you come with an RT-PCR negative test, literally you produce that test, you can just walk out of the airport, right? There's no need for quarantining anything else. And I think that's a great sort of mechanism to say that, listen, you've got the negative test, you've been on the flight. So if you really wanted another layer of any sort of, let's say, insurance, you could do testing on arrival or whatever it is. But again, the problem is you've got to have a quick, cheap, and accurate test. And otherwise, if you're going to tell people that, we'll do a test, but you'll get results in 7 hours, 12 hours, 3 days, all that stuff, I mean, it just defeats the purpose. I think what you need is some ability to test quickly, get results quickly, and for that result to be pretty damn accurate at all times, right? Better than 99% rate, for instance. And I think if you do those things, automatically you're telling the business community that, yeah, you can travel. There are not going to be any sort of sudden shocks to the system in terms of changing a process or quarantine and things like that. And that automatically also tells corporate HR or your finance controller and everybody else that you don't have this additional layer of cost unless you have contracted or you are COVID positive, in which case, in any case, you should be sort of getting medical attention or isolating or whatever it is, depending on the severity of the symptoms. So I think that's essential.
Correct. Vikash, you wanted to say something, Vikash?
Sorry, Girish, just one point on RT-PCR.
Yeah, sure.
And the fact is, RT-PCR, the test is true positive, the results are. So if you are positive, there's a challenge with the test in false negative, but true positive is a pretty good test to have. So that could be a starting point for us, actually.
Yeah, absolutely. Vikash, you wanted to say something.
Yeah, so the point I was trying to make is whatever Satyaki and Parul mentioned, I agree with the fact that till the time, I mean, if tests are going to be available and it's going to be cheap, it's going to be accurate, it's going to be instant, it serves a lot of the purpose. Till the time that's not there, one of the things what I'm observing in my company is a lot of the employees, themselves may not be exposed to high degree of acquiring COVID, but they are concerned about the fact that they have aged parents or they have family members who have a lot of comorbidities, and it's a forced quarantine they want to do on themselves to ensure that their family members are not exposed. So it was in terms of till the time we have alternate means available, and if the business has to continue, how do we ensure that we make these services available in terms of quarantine facilities? And the reason I was mentioning that, and Parul, it goes back in terms of what hotels can do here is, I think the brand hotels, something like the brand you are associated with, have a lot of opportunity to build on that trust here, because just by the brand name, there is a lot of trust associated with it. And when you say that there are safety standards which are followed, people generally tend to agree, and there is a confidence level that here the safety standards might be getting followed in a particular brand of hotels. And that's something which is going to be important in terms of advertising, promoting, and tying up with corporates in terms of ensuring that, hey, it's not a COVID designated quarantine facility, but this is available where the employees or your corporate citizens, if they are there, can use these facilities, and we are taking the highest level of safety standards, because that's something which is very important. The reason being, initially, when we had folks coming back from on-site locations, one of the issues or the complaints what we received from a lot of our employees was about the quality of the quarantine facility. They were not very happy with it, right? And at that point of time, if you looked into it, it was government mandated hotels which could have been used. There were not too many options which were available, and within those limited options, what the employees chose, if you ask them, hey, would you be willing to go through the same process once more? The answer to that was a straight no.
Okay. So, I always knew that, this, this group, a brilliant group, 1 hour is going to be less, and this subject is pretty vast. But since we have last, we have entered in the last 5 to 10 minute zone, while I'll tell my backend team to open up some questions from the group, if they have any questions for the panelists. But at the same time, I would like to, so in the interest of the time, to save time by the time the questions come on the chat for me, Satyaki, what is that one thing, all these kind of, what do you call, act of God or, Corona, where we all have hit ground zero, we have an opportunity to shed one thing out, right? I said, I will not carry one excess baggage, what we used to in the post-COVID scenario when I'm bouncing back. You know, the one thing that you would like to change, or you would like to leave back, or you would like to make a change, you know, when the industry bounces back, what would that be from your perspective, Satyaki? We could hear from everyone. So
yeah, so I think from my perspective, what has been most encouraging, and I'm hoping it will stay or long may it last, is the fact that the different stakeholders across the industry have come together. And I think they've come together because it's a question of survival, because it's a question of making sure that you have to build confidence. And so historically, for instance, if you notice, airports and airlines, for instance, were always sort of headbutting at times on various issues. There's always been some antagonism. There's been some discussion on charges, some discussion on various topics and things like that, data sharing. But I think one thing that COVID has done in a sort of a, I suppose, in a perverse sort of way to be a positive influence as far as the industry is concerned, is that sharing of data, information, and the ability that when push comes to shove, if it is required, the airports, the airlines, and other sort of extended members of the travel ecosystem can come together and do what is required in order to sort of reboot the system and make sure that we can really kickstart travel, right? And I think I've been very encouraged, for instance, by some of the work that we've done with all of our airline partners, whether it's Indigo and Sanjay's team, or AirAsia or SpiceJet, Vistara, whoever it is, Air India. I mean, I think the point is that every one of our sort of airline partners, we've really sort of worked hard with domestic, international. We are having far more sort of focused and mature conversations about what it's going to take to sort of really drive the industry forward, rather than being sort of petty and territorial. And I think that's been hugely encouraging. I'm hoping that that will last. And I'm really hoping that that will be, this pandemic will, for at least for the foreseeable future and for the long term, completely bring together a spirit of collaboration and make sure that we can actually share data, we can move together, and we can really try and take the industry forward, rather than sort of focusing only on sort of what our own challenges are.
Sanjay, you have anything? One thing that you will not carry forward,
I think, as Satyaki kind of described it, in addition to that, what I personally feel is this touchless travel, I think, will be the new normal. I think India is always behind in many of the initiatives which come in the other part of the world first, and then we take years to follow them. I think this touchless travel or digitalization of the entire travel experience is a new normal which will kind of unfold of many, many years to come. And that will also help not only the airport operators, the airline operators, also, the travelers themselves, in terms of finding it efficient, finding it productive, and finding it less time consuming compared to, having to check in their bags and having to get into the check-in queues or boarding queues. I think this is a new normal which has kind of redefined the industry in a big way. And if we had the normal situation without COVID, I think to reach to the current level, I think we would have taken many, many years to come. I mean, after 5 years, we will still be talking about, we still think that our customers are well educated, they are doing the web check-in, 50% of them are doing the web check-in. So this is one thing I hope that it will stay going forward. That will not only improve the efficiency and the cost efficiency for both for the airline operators as well as airport operators, and collectively we will be able to pass this benefit to the traveling public in terms of the lower cost of operations. So I think this will help in a big way going forward, and I hope this will sustain for a longer period of time.
Sorry, Girish, just to add to what Sanjay said, just so that I don't know whether this group knows, but we had started the touchless travel project, as you know, long before COVID started. So I think COVID has only reinforced that.
Yeah.
And we went live. I mean, Sanjay knows from his time even at AirAsia, for instance.
Yeah.
We started with Vistara and AirAsia are live, and Indigo will go live by October of this year. Spice is going live in a couple of weeks. So I think that's something that with or without COVID we would have done, and I think COVID has just reinforced what Sanjay says.
So the only difference, Teki, is that if we had taken 4 years to implement some of the things at the ground level in terms of the customer accepting them, I think that has happened in 4 months' time, less than 3 months' time. Yeah, that's the only thing. Yeah.
That's what I said. We've been pushing some things for quite some time, but COVID has just allowed us to, consumers to just react in a faster way, right? Parul, anything from your side, the hotel industry, that you would think that, when you all bounce back, one thing that you will not carry forward, or, you would like to see a change from what used to be a normal in the pre-COVID days?
I think I share the sentiments of what the airline industry has pretty much said, that adversity always brings people together and always brings new formats of business. And I think what we've gone to, which is pretty much touchless, is the new normal. I think that's something that we will definitely carry forward. And that's there to stay. And I think there were a lot of opportunities in the past which were explored in order to help reduce the bottom line, to improve the bottom line. And I think this one will help eventually. I think that's the whole motto, and that's something that all the service industries have been trying to do, because it just reduces or it just helps the bottom line. And I think that's something that we'll definitely take forward.
Sanjay, there is one question for you. I think, is there a new pricing structure after pandemic? Can there be a possibility of regaining same discounts in the near future? so I think it's a most favorite question when it comes to airlines, isn't it?
So thanks to the Ministry of Civil Aviation, we have the some kind of pricing control at this point of time, which are valid till 24th of November 2020. And I hope post that those controls will be taken away. So obviously, customers in India are extremely price sensitive. Obviously, they expect much lower fare than anywhere else. So a fare of 3,000, 4,000 is okay, but when it crosses 5,000, they find it very expensive. And so that psychology cannot be changed. So I hope that with the capacity coming in the marketplace, with more and more capacity coming into the marketplace, and this all consistency, which everybody talked. Dr. Prashant and I talked about the consistency of experience or quarantine philosophy and the culture around those. I think once those are kind of taken away, we see the growth in the capacity. The fares will be reflective of all those elements. I think we will see that the fare cap either on the lower side or the higher side will also be going away. So it will be like a free market, which used to be pre-COVID scenario, where customer did not much of a complaint about the fares. The fares will be affordable if the airlines want to grow their business, for sure.
The next question is, when do you see international travel take off completely? I think most of the research says that domestic travel is which is going to bounce back, and international travel will obviously take time, probably 6 to 8 months. I think Satyaki, and that also, in fact, I wanted to speak about it in the interest of time, but you shared some great news with me today in the morning, which is of international travel. So you can just share that as well, and answer this question, saying that how much time do you think international travel will take to bounce back?
So I'll just kind of quickly cover the domestic side. We are seeing almost 60% of the recovery as far as the market is concerned. Load factors are kind of moving into now high 60s, and every one of us sees the tweet from the Ministry of Civil Aviation. So that itself speaks of the recovery which is happening in the domestic market. As far as international is concerned, we are seeing some traction in the Middle East and Southeast Asia through these bubble flights, but the numbers are not great as far as our operations are concerned. I mean, they are still much lower than what we would expect. And my own understanding, our own understanding is that it will take a couple of months before we see the normal operations back into the this Middle East, Southeast Asia market. Europe and US, of course, it is happening through these bubble flights, but of course we are not in that area at this point in time, so I'll not be able to comment much of that.
Satyaki?
Yeah, I think Sanjay has talked about sort of what they're seeing. We started off with about 9,000 passengers a day, as you know, Girish. We are up to about 27, 28,000 passengers a day today. I think from an international perspective, things are still slow. And as Sanjay says, domestic load factors have sort of hit about 60%. If you look at across Bangalore airport, and international load factors are still in the low 40s, high 30s, low 40s, depending on whether they're repatriation flights versus sort of air bubble flights and things like that. My personal view is, I don't think it's an issue of so much, again, the issue of the demand of people not wanting to travel alone. I think part of the challenge is you've only reinstated certain routes and you're making it very difficult with all of these preconditions, the quarantining, the sort of the protocols and processes and the inconsistency of those things. So actually, if you take the view that we talked about earlier in terms of some consistency, some testing, some ability to build confidence, I think people like, I mean, you and me, Girish, I mean, I'll be on a flight the first day they say I can fly. I'll be on a flight and I'll go on a holiday. And I will do it. And I think there are enough of us who will say that, we will go back to, we will be safe. We'll wear a mask, we'll distance, and we'll sort of do things. But we will go back to taking a holiday or flying or doing things because that's a very essential and very enjoyable part of our life. So it's not just about business travel, but it's about the fact that we like traveling. The human race likes traveling and seeing places and visiting people and getting around. So I think that today, most of the restriction is not just about a demand issue, but it's also because of these forced sort of rules that are causing some of the, suppression of that demand. So I think, as Sanjay says, I don't know. I think the more you make it difficult for airlines to reinstate networks with a series of sort of rules and regulations that are preventing them from reorganizing the whole network, the more challenging it becomes. Because for most airlines, it's not just about point-to-point traffic. It's about the ability to build a network and for network planning to work with the connections and with sort of the people and the ability to connect through that network.
Absolutely.
So I think that's very essential. And I don't have a good answer, but I think this year will still be weak because of the ability of the government's inability to allow airlines to reinstate networks rather than anything else. I don't blame the government. I'm just saying it is what it is. But I think if you allow the market to sort of do what it needs to do to recover and take away the controls that you're placing on them artificially, then I think the market, at least even from an international perspective, I would say that most of the Indian stuff should recover in the next 18 to 24 months. I think it will recover. I think our domestic traffic will probably recover even sooner. And if you take away these crazy price controls, and I agree with Sanjay. I mean, I think the market should be allowed to decide what price it sets. And it's a driver. I mean, it's based on demand and supply. I think this whole issue of controlling everybody's pricing is just insane. But that's just me. I mean, I strongly believe in competition and free market system. So I don't like all of this. But anyway, nobody's asking me. So that's it.
So Vikash, there's a question for you saying, the insurance product that you spoke about, is there any insurance company that has agreed, or you don't have to name it, but are you guys going to launch it? Or, so there is a question from one of the, attendee on this.
Yeah, so internally for our, for the India-based employees, we have already got a deal which is signed. But it was not a standard product, and it took us a lot of negotiations and the help from a broker perspective. And hence my ask was, how can we get it done more as a standard industry product so more and more individuals can benefit out of it?
Excellent. Thank you very much, all of you. It was such a interesting discussion, and we've been planning this for a long time. So thank you very much, the Riya Business Travel team, who has organized this beautifully. Travel Spends team, who has done the back end, technology, analytics, research, and helped me with a lot of questions. One thing that I would say that I completely agree with Satyaki and everyone that stakeholder collaboration. And collaboration is the key to actually succeed in post-COVID. So with this, we'll close this, and I'm sure we will have many more such discussions on some different subjects as we bounce back and get back to normal. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you very much.
Thank you.